Onions, Chapter 8, Work. The Saturdays flew by. By the middle of April, C.W. had saved nearly $30 after handling over $14 to Mrs. Williams every Saturday night. He'd read a book a week for a month and earned another $5. He was beginning to enjoy reading. So far, he'd read not only the book on submarines, but also books on flying saucers, cavemen, and the Civil War. Also, with the extra cash, he'd been able to purchase several more comics. Way in the back of his mind, he had the idea that one day he'd take off, get out of the rotten system that kept him in misery. To do that, he'd need cash. He'd made a vow to himself that the next time they tried to transfer him to a different foster home, he'd run fast and far. But for now, he was beginning to like Mrs. Fuller. She was tough, but she was always right, and she was fair. When he did something good, she complimented him, like the time he came up with a new way to picket. He'd mentioned his job to Billy and Laurie. They were enthusiastic about helping out. Both their parents thought the sports dome was a bad idea and readily agreed they could spend their Saturdays picketing with C.W. He'd been wondering whether or not he should involve them in his work, but finally decided it was a good plan. So, one Saturday, after he'd emerged from under the hotshot, smudged and greasy, he was changing the oil. He hurried into the kitchen to clean up and present his idea to his boss. "Mrs. Fuller, I got an idea. I got some friends at school who I can hire. I'll pay them a little bit to work for me. That way, we'll have 3 pickets. We can reach a lot more people. We can make the picket signs. They're both good at arts and crafts, and they have their Saturdays free." Sandrine had been very gracious. "Charles, I compliment you on your entrepreneurship. It's a great idea. The more people we get involved in our project, the better." "Okay, I'll tell them on Sunday. I'll tell them in school on Monday. Now I got to get to the print shop and make some copies of our flyers." Sandra gave C.W. $20 and led him to the garage where she pulled out the bicycle. "Use this. It's a little rusty, but a little oil will make it run like new." "Great!" C.W. exclaimed exuberantly as he hopped on the bicycle and circled Sandrine several times. "You should be able to get to the coffee shop in about 15 minutes. I'd take you, but I got to work on my French." "That's okay, Mrs. Fuller. I love to ride a bike." C.W. rode to the kitchen door, ran inside, grabbed some papers from the table, and took off. "See you in half an hour." "Au revoir," Sandrine shouted after him.